let me tell you about architect. It's not even here. But yeah, basically, those kind of cathedral buildings, Victor Hugo taught, oh yeah, it's called La Mysterie de la Cathédrale. So this is a guy named Fulcanelli, and he wrote a book called The Mystery of the Cathedrals in French. And basically, it's all about what really be going on in the cathedrals. And the buildings were always like when they always say Jesus was a carpenter, and then the Freemasons call themselves Freemasons. Masons are people that build stone structures. Basically, there's a lot of power in buildings, and the reason why cathedrals are so complicated and we can't even replicate them today is because the best builders, like of Solomon's son, are the ones who built those, and they were built with a specific kind of glass to where you could put that glass there, have the sunlight shine into the water, and you could do a different kind of baptism ritual. And they were doing like high level baptisms. There's a lot of evidence out there that the kind of baptisms that are done now aren't with the right kind of holy water, because there's a verse that you need to be cleansed of water and by fire, and water is super important. Because you know the real structure of this earth is literally flat plane, firmament dome. But the Bible says he separated the waters, so the waters from above, the waters from below to make this, and then he called it. So the word for matrix comes from the Bible actually, and it basically means womb. And basically this whole kind of the earth system is like a womb in water, and that's why it says that we're cleansed by fire in the end times, because basically all those who are saved are given like fire bodies, and they go into the next kind of stuff. It's like elevating out of the womb, and that's why everything on this universe is yeah, that's kind of how it's designed. Like that's really the system that we operate in. And so the whole ruling class, their mission, their objective is they want to stay with the fallen angels on this earth, and they want to make earth their own kind of playground, because they rejected God from the beginning, and they want to bring as many people as possible with them to live on earth for eternity. The problem is though, the Bible talks about Jesus coming back on a horse, blood on his robe, and basically reclaiming the earth. And so everyone else is basically thrown into the lake of fire. And that's kind of how it was written.
That's actually some crazy stuff. Like, here's another thing. So I know this one guy on TikTok, it's like this older guy. He's probably like in his 50s, and he makes videos about like how certain people are fallen angels. And so he'll talk about like how Michael Jackson looks like a certain person, and he says like this person was Michael Jackson back then. He'll be like LeBron's a fallen angel. This person was LeBron back then, and he'll like point it out by like either like a scar, a birthmark, or like certain eye structures or nose structures or facial structures. What do you think about that?
Yeah, 1000%, the lifespan isn't meant to be 120 years. Like Adam lived to like 960, and people were living to like hundreds of years old, like on like a tree. And that's how the human body is actually meant to age. And then if you're on the opposite side and you're Nephilim, you can just consume endless amounts of blood and reclaim your youth. And that's kind of what's been going on. And back in the day, like people were, I mean, basically they had a bunch of insane asylums while they were setting everything up. And then now they have the internet and they have every kind of tool of brainwashing out there. So like, it's mad easy. Like very few people have ever met world leaders, and everyone who's A-list, they're in their own class. Like you get there by birth, being born into a certain family.
They were saying he was thinking, he says that Donald Trump is Elvis.
But yeah, I saw that low key. Yeah, I think that's actually possible. But I don't think he is a fallen angel. I think he's just part of ruling class genetics, and he has a very important part to play in what's about to happen. Like he's the initiator of World War III, and he's basically helping bring about a lot of biblical events. There's wars. The Bible talks about how women will be covered in stuff on their face, so like makeup. In the end times, people will be lovers of themselves. And wars in different parts of the world, like a lot of that stuff is coming exactly true. Just like Daniel's prophecies came exactly true. Just like all the prophecies in the Bible came exactly true. Yeah, what's about to happen is a massive war and a massive deception, bigger than the deception of kind of the way the universe works. You know, like most of science is a genuine lie. Like evolution has no weight. There was this guy actually, his name was Dr. Walter Reed, and basically, so he was a student, like he was basically a professor, and he taught evolution, and then he did digging, and he realized evolution was actually completely wrong, and then he went like all in into teaching like the truth, and basically he's a super devout Christian. And he stumbled, like he went the scientific route and he used science to disprove evolution, because evolution literally makes zero sense. Like Darwin just saw, it would be like if you saw dogs of different breeds and you just assume that a Chihuahua turned into a Great Dane just because you saw those different breeds. Like it makes zero sense. Not a single positive mutation has ever been documented. And we've never actually seen something change species. See, cross a tiger and a lion, comes out infertile. And basically 999 times out of 1,000, mutations are negative and lead to like instant death basically. So there's no way a Pylon turns into a human. And once you get rid of evolution, then when you really think about the shape of the earth, you realize, like from our perspectives, it's very clear the sun rotates around the earth. And from our perspectives, it's very clear the sun and the moon are the same size. And that's exactly how it was biblically written and established. And then basically, you need to go through 1,000 different hoops. You need to jump through hoop after hoop to make the claim that one is 400 times bigger than the other. And everything is somehow spinning around the sun, but it's undetectable. And then you just have to watch footage given by NASA, which literally means to deceive in Hebrew. And every single astronaut has always been a Freemason. And the main astronaut that supposedly went to the moon, his tombstone says Psalm 19:1. It's right here. Werner von Braun, Psalm 19:1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament sheweth his handiwork. That's literally what the one of the first astronauts wrote on his tombstone. And it's basically always been a lot of force on you. They give you the glow when you're a child, sleep deprived. They force you to say it over and over. And it's one of the biggest lies of all time.
So why do you think he wrote this on his tombstone?
Basically, the truth always comes out. Like God gave everyone a natural sense of right and wrong that can't be explained by science. And there's always a pull toward the moral good. God was always like good, beautiful, true, like the highest of moral goodness. And that's like a force that pulls people toward that. And this guy, bro, he could lie his whole life, but on his deathbed, he repented. And he evidently just said the truth. And this happens a lot actually. And for some reason, like there's a strange higher rate of mortality working at NASA. So not even the astronauts, but like NASA engineers die a lot of strange deaths. I mean, you can find it with research easily, but like they want the highest natural like strange death occurrence. And it's basically the engineers that figure it out. As soon as they want to go public, they get murdered. And now
That's why-
basically, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's true. What are you saying?
That's why now that we have AI is basically trained by people who are in certain families, and like it's always just gonna back the lies that we're given. So it's basically like you either have like there's this comedian, right? His name's Owen Benjamin. He actually studied physics at Caltech, ran a physics podcast, and he started asking questions about this like actual shape of the earth, how it actually functions. And he basically just got blacklisted from Hollywood, blacklisted from everything, and now he like lives on a farm somewhere. And that's really like flat earth is one of the like biggest lies you could ever have. And what did Hitler and Joseph Goebbels say about lies? They said if you want a lot of people believed, you need to just repeat it over and over. And that's what the whole earth thing has always been a lie that was repeated and pushed over and over for certain people. And you genuinely have to betray your own consciousness to believe that you're on a spinning ball and that you're a hyper evolved monkey, because none of that stuff really adds up. If all that stuff were true, then like, for example, you can look at star paths, like a time lapse of star paths from the last like 1,000, 2,000 years, and you'll basically see this. And that basically proves it's the same stars. Like, if we were spinning 1,000 miles an hour, three different directions, or they also conveniently say that we're tilted at 23.4 degrees, in other words, 66.6 degrees, and then supposedly spinning three different directions, a bunch of different ways. But we see the same stars that the Greeks saw 2,000 years ago, and the same stars the Egyptians saw 3,000 years ago. It's always been the same constellations in the sky, and it's been the same stars that we just watch spin around us. And it's basically the exact snow globe. The sky spins around us, the moon and the sun. And basically, when the flood happened, there's water above, there's water below. God just opened the floodgates basically, and water came in, and then he instructed Noah on how to build the ark to where it could withstand the flood. But the true like place that NASA is really exploring is underwater, because that's actually the aquatic kingdom is very demonic. What happened in the New Testament when there was a bunch of demons that Jesus found in a man and he brought them out? They went into the pigs. After they went into the pigs, they went into the water. And the creator of Avatar, he was a Satanist, a proud Satanist. And he went into a trance state after a bunch of rituals one day, and he wanted to see the face of his deity, which was Satan. And he ended up coming up with the Avatar, like that blue aquatic thing. And like, obviously fallen angels come in a bunch of different forms. They can all change their forms. Evidently, that's one of them. The water is really like the unexplored territory, not space.
Oh yeah, that is true. Oh, what is this stuff about people talking about like portals and shit underwater? Like, go more in depth about underwater. What type of shit could you see?
Oh yeah. See, basically, when you go into the Olympians, there was Poseidon, right? And when you go into like the Odyssey, which was actually a real recounting of like true events, like Homer didn't write it as a myth, he wrote it as a true. All those Herculean tales are like the demigods, like fallen angels came down. Like basically, when you look at Zeus and these people and their behaviors, that was what the fallen angels are doing. Like the real God would never come down and start impregnating women and like doing a bunch of beefs and doing this and that. But the fallen angels, though, and it's the same cast throughout all these different cultures. One with lightning, another kind of like Hermes, Anubis. Like basically, it's the same characters that all these different cultures talk about with different names, and that's because God confounded the languages. But when you look at that, it's evident that there's fallen angels that came down to have sex with women, and basically that was what Zeus was doing. That was what all the fallen angels were doing. They come down, change their gender, all that. And when you look at what's supposedly in the sea, there's a Leviathan that was written about in Job. It was written about all throughout the Old Testament. And there are aquatic creatures that are basically, they're wild. And then also, what does the Bible say? After the flood. So they're Nephilim in the days before the flood. And then it says after the flood happened, there were Nephilim in the days after, which meant there were Nephilim that could survive the flood. What kind of Nephilim will those be? Likely the watery ones. Obviously other kinds as well. But like people have always spoken about mermaids. Like Odyssey wrote about sirens that could sing and then kill you. And basically, those are very real. Because if you look at the book of Enoch, right, even the tutor, our Latin specialist, bro, he was telling me like he actually believes in the book of Enoch too. Like there's so much evidence that it was in the book. It's in the Ethiopian Bible. It's very real. The book of Enoch talks about how the fallen angels that came down and made it with women, after the woman gave birth, those ended up being like monstrosities. It ended up being like the demons, like basically giants. It literally says in one of the books of the Bible that in their sight, we were like grasshoppers to them. And basically that's how big they got. Like the Attack on Titan stuff, like that kind of massive level giant, those were out there. And like the first sons of the fallen angels were massive, crazy giants that fed on human beings and had insatiable lust. And they would impregnate other ones and create just lines of just monstrosities. That's why the flood came. And it says in the book of Enoch that the woman who mated with fallen angels, their punishment was to become sirens. So there's a biblical backing for the fact that sirens are literally out there. And bro, you know, there's a part of Spain, actually on the west coast, like Portugal, there's a part of Spain where a lot of people go missing, and it's well known. And basically the theories are that that's like a hotspot for cryptids, sirens, things like that. And that also all across the East Coast, fishermen have Telegram, because anything they post on the internet gets deleted and wiped by the military. But they have on Telegram, they share pictures and stories about things that they've caught or things that they've seen while being on the water. And that's just like all the pilots that have become flat earthers from the time that they've been flying and just seeing that the earth never actually curves. And you know, like every time they were pressed on a curvature of the earth, they couldn't actually provide it. Like no one's been able to prove curvature of the earth. It supposedly happens like 8 inches per mile squared, but it's never been documented. No one's ever been able to prove it. You can take a drone and just run tests, and like there's a bunch of different proofs. Like when people built the railroad tracks, they didn't ever take into account curvature of the earth. It never shows up in any experiments. No engineer ever uses curvature of the earth to factor into their buildings, even when they're building massive bridges. And you know, there are bridges that like physically shouldn't exist on a curved earth because they're completely straight for miles and miles. And you can't have complete straightness for miles and miles. Like the curved earth model requires 8 inches per mile squared. Never been documented. There's a book actually and this is how I found out a lot about it. Yeah, this guy wrote a full book about like just tearing apart the idea of globe earth. And it's just filled with straight fact. But it's one of the biggest lies out there, covered up. Like, I mean, they gotta cover that up like flat. Like globe earth and evolution are two massive lies that keep atheism going.
Damn, bro. Yeah, that's actually some crazy shit. So damn. So like, what about these portals?
Loki, thing about portals, bro, is you don't really know. Because if you look at what CERN is actually doing, CERN is actually the name of a deity, a pagan deity. But if you look at what CERN is actually doing, they're actually just doing rituals here to summon things. Bro, yeah, they be doing this kind of shit, man.
Is it like on them? What the hell?
That's like because you know, all those, the Hindu deities, they're actually real. Like, there were these demon things. All that stuff is just true retellings. And when you do sacrifices to them, those are real things. You know what's really crazy? Abortion. Because look at what a ziggurat looks like. Now this is where the Aztecs and the pyramids, all of them, that's where you went and sacrificed babies to the altar, to these pagan deities. And now, bro, look at what these abortion clinics look like.
Similar? No way. I have to put it side by side to see.
Okay, oh yeah, look at this, and then look at this.
Yeah, they kind of do.
And honestly, they actually changed it, because I remember I looked at this before, and they got like, there used to be a lot more buildings where it really looked like a ziggurat, but that's really what it's always been about. Like, it's all over the Epstein files. A lot of this stuff's going to get revealed more over time, but this is where human sacrifice used to take place, and all those things are very real. The demons and like strange creatures on this earth. Like, if you look at the authors in Narnia and the authors of Lord of the Rings, they actually come from occult families that are given access to texts that aren't given to the public, and a different kind of education. And they were actually writing the truth. Like, there have been fairies, there have been dragons, there have been giants, and different kinds of magic on this earth. and rituals are very real. And basically, like a lot of that stuff, like people talk about the law of attraction right now. That stuff's biblically based. What's also biblically based is the fact that Solomon had a ring that could control all the demons. That's what the Lord of the Rings is actually alluding to. The fact that that ring still exists. And there's a whole lot of ancient technology, as well as what does John 14:12 say? This verse, no pastor on earth can explain it. It says, tell you the truth, anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done, and even greater works, because I'm going to be with the Father. Now you understand, the way the biblically story functions is that God functions through three personalities, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. And in the Old Testament, there's a motif there about the sacrifice of your firstborn son. That happens when Abraham is asked to sacrifice. And it shows up when the Pharaoh's firstborn sons are threatened. And basically all throughout, there's that sacrifice of giving up your most dearest, your firstborn son. And basically what happens in the New Testament is God does that for all of humanity. So he sends his son down in the form of a human, as prophesied all throughout the Old Testament. But this human was actually God. And he performed a bunch of miracles, including multiplying loaves of bread, including walking on water, commanding the weather. He performed miracle after miracle. He multiplied loaves of bread. He cast out demons. He healed people with just a touch. And basically what he's saying right here is that this is God in human form, and he's basically saying all the works I have done, you'll do the same. In fact, because I'll be back with the Father, you'll do even greater works. No pastor on earth can actually explain this. Ask anyone. I've asked a bunch of them. No one actually understands this verse. And what it's really talking about is that the real potential of people, it goes far beyond what they tell you in science, far beyond what the theory of evolution and space and all that random stuff talk about. Basically, the Christian and like what Christians are actually capable of. What happened when Jesus was walking on water? He calls someone out to him. That person goes out and walks on water. And then he gets scared. He looks at the water. He starts to drown. Then what does Jesus say? Why did you doubt? And basically, what happened in the Old Testament? Moses performed magic. He turned a staff into a snake, back into a staff. Moses was an Egyptian magician. These are out there. And that's one of the great secrets that basically you get the slave class believing in glow birth and all that nonsense. And you get the slave class believing in science and evolution, theory of relativity, all that random stuff. And then you put them in economic slavery to where they have to just work and grind away to the point where they never actually figure any of it out. And then they're poisoned, killed off by things like war, and the deception continues.
Yeah, it's so crazy, bro. But here's one thing. What do you think about? I also heard. So like going back to the CERN thing. Apparently, I don't know if this is true, but they're like changing reality or something, and that's why we have like deja vu and all those things. I don't know.
Yeah, low key, there are government weapons with frequencies that definitely like you can point a frequency at people and make them go into a manic state, make them get very angry. That's actually well documented. But basically, the whole deja vu idea, like the whole concept of reality, bro, is that the pineal gland can actually dictate reality. Like they've done things like the quantum slit experiment, the double slit experiment, and basically reality really isn't like the theory of like what they teach you in science. Reality is affected by consciousness, and that's why the law of attraction works, and that's why it's biblically based as well. And what happens is sometimes people can experience that, like they can experience reality before it's happened. They can get visions of the future. All the prophets of the Bible had visions, and that's just facts. Like a lot of people get it, and then science will just misinterpret that for you. But the natural capabilities of the human being way beyond what they tell you. You can have visions of the future. You can use things like the law of attraction, which is just the mechanics of prayer. And you can actually dictate reality. Like all the best athletes visualize their wins. That's one of the biggest parts of their practice. And it's just a straight fact. Your consciousness can dictate reality, biblically based.
So they were also saying like they were talking about like Mandela effect and like basically they were saying like there's like a like we're basically in the matrix and that there's somebody like just tweaking stuff to like try to make like the perfect like world or something.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of Looney Tunes series out there, man. Because low-key, the Mandela effect, like people just remembering things differently. I feel like the real fact is that there is a different, like there's a real version of history and then there's what was taught in the schools and what's a public record. And the people that remember differently, they get psychological terms. That's really all science is just making up terms and using words to like tell a story about things that can't be proven. And like, that's kind of what happened. Like there's so many people that have just been wiped out of history. The real flow of history, the real truth and straight. Like Napoleon has a quote, history is told by the victors. That's a fact.
True.
And the real fact, bro, there's a hidden hand that's orchestrated all of recent history.
What's that in there?
Let me tell you about the Jesuits. They call themselves, let me pull that up. And they call themselves the Society of Jesus, these Jesuits. But in reality, this is one of the most powerful groups in the world. They really orchestrate all of history. Here's the Jesuits that led the French Revolution. It's the Jesuits that are at the highest order of the Freemasons. These Jesuits are the ones who wrote history. They control the Roman Catholic Church, which effectively is the head of the entire Babylonian Empire. The Pope is actually the leader of the world, and there's three of them: the gray, the white, and the black Pope. But these people, man, they're different. If you look at this, it genuinely looks like a Halloween picture, because that's really who they are. There's a book out there right here: Murder, Torture in a Catholic Nunnery. The Catholics were set up by the Jesuits. The Jesuits are the same people. Essentially, what happened during the crucifixion? Basically, it was a group of people in the ears of Pontius Pilate telling him they needed to put a certain man under Roman crucifixion. That group of people was so influential. King Herod was able to use his sorcerers and understand that the Messiah was born and immediately send out his soldiers and go kill every baby in the entire city. That's what happened. And basically, these Jews were in power during that time. And then they were the ones who were in the ears of Pontius Pilate and made all that happen. And then naturally, they rebranded themselves as the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. And then they formed the Roman Catholic Church and began their Epstein stuff. And basically, they are the Pharisees, the ones who he was criticizing. It's the Jesuits. Like they're basically the ruling class of the Jews, because everyone knows the Jews. But anyone who actually knows a Jew, they know they don't actually have much power. It's a higher ruling class of the Jews. These are the Jesuits and the 13 families. And if you look, basically these are the books, right? These are the books that prove all of it. Alfred Rosenberg, The Myth of the 20th Century. The symbols broken down, the gods of the lodge is a Freemason lodge. George Washington, Freemason. It's written before president on his tombstone. The 13th tribe. These are actually books that are all getting banned, by the way. That's why I got them in the audiobook library. Like these are books you cannot buy anywhere, taken out of all the libraries. But all this stuff was common knowledge 200 years ago. Before public education, the literacy rate was 99%. This is what they don't tell you. In the 1800s, things were great in America. People all had their own farms. No one had to go work random jobs, and everyone could read and write because they were actually getting taught by the ancient system of education, mentorship. Basically, every time people just choose the smartest person and have them teach the kids. No schools, no teachers, no false propaganda. But basically, if you want the real truths of the world, you got to go into books that were banned by authors that are obscure, that have been taken out of the education system. You know what else is a fact? Atomic bombs are not even real. This whole thing about does Iran have nuclear weapons? Do they not? It's not even real. If you look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they weren't even the two most famous cities in Japan after World War II.
You said so. What about this? What about the bombs that were dropped?
It was just regular bombs. There's no such thing as an atomic bomb. That's just a tool of fear used to control people. And you know what really exposes it, bro? There was a leaked document called the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And then it was covered up. But this basically exposes a lot of it.
So what is this book talking about?
It's basically a written document taken from the Jesuits. And it talks about, so look, that's where we're going right there. To us Jews, they talk about, oh, I found the perfect part, destructive education. Listen to this.
You're gonna have to.
Can you hear that?
Is it part?
Yeah, can you hear it?
No. I think you have to. You have to share the application.
Can you hear that? Low-key, I hear 6. I mean, low-key.
You can just read it, right?
So basically it says, think carefully of the successes we arranged for Darwinism, Marxism, Nietzscheism. So basically they arranged these 3 things, Darwinism being one of their main things. And it basically talks about the triumph of our system to which the component parts of machinery may be disposed according to the temperament of people will fail if it's not. Like basically, it's not about education is going to be used to control people. This whole document, the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, is like a high-level Jewish document that was never meant to be leaked. And it all depends on a financial system of slavery and then a system of education.
Yeah, that's actually crazy, there.
You see this, bro? It is indispensable for our purpose that wars, so far as possible, should not result in territorial gains. Wars will thus be brought on to the economic ground, where the nations will not fail to perceive in the assistance we give the strength of our predominance. And the state of things will put both sides at the mercy of our international agenter. Now, the agenter are basically like the people that make things happen in the world, like the real men in suits behind the president. And it talks about how wars aren't about territorial gains. They're just meant to be ongoing wars. And then, bro, poverty, our weapon. You see this?
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Let's read this part.
All people chained down to heavy toil by poverty, more firmly than ever. They were chained before by slavery and serfdom. From these, one way and another, they might free themselves. They could be settled with, but from one, they will never get away. We have included in the Constitution such rights as to the masses appear fictitious and not actual rights. All these so-called people's rights can exist only in idea, an idea which can never be realized in practical life. What is it to the proletariat laborer? Bowed, double over his heavy toil, crushed by his lot in life. If talkers get the right to babble, if journalists get the right to scribble any nonsense side by side with good stuff, once the proletariat has no other profit out of the Constitution save only those pitiful crumbs which we fling them from our table in return for their voting in favor of what we dictate, in favor of the men we place in power, the servants of our agenter. Republican rights for a poor man are no more than a bitter piece of irony. For necessity, he is under of toiling almost all day, gives him no present use of them, but the other hand robs him of all guarantee of regular and certain earnings by making him dependent on strikes by his comrades or lockouts by his masters. You see right here in the Jesuit texts themselves, they use poverty and the financial system to keep people in a permanent state of head down toil, slavery, backbreaking work.
That's actually so crazy. So how did this get leaked?
It was just stolen, bro, and then shared around. And then the government came out with random explanations, but it's really just all straight facts in there. They genuinely use the word goyim. Look at this, bro. It is essential. They even capitalize it. It is essential to teach in national schools one simple true piece of knowledge, the basis of all knowledge, the knowledge of the structure of human life, of social existence, which requires division of labor, and consequently the division of men into classes and conditions. Basically evolution. It is essential for all to know that owing to difference in the objects of human activity, there cannot be any equality. That he who by any act of his compromises a whole class cannot be equally responsible. The true knowledge of the structure of society, into the secrets of which we do not admit the goyim, would demonstrate to all men that the positions and work must be kept within a certain circle, that they may not become a source of human suffering. And then they talk about the Jews will be safe. And they talk about the changing of empires. And then, bro, this is what's happened to people like Ryan. They fell victim to the ancient Jesuit plan. That basically, they talk about everything they put into action. And it basically talks about how they get rid of the idea. It is indispensable for us to undermine all faith, to tear out of the mind of the goyim, the very principle of Godhead and the Spirit, and to put in its place arithmetical calculations and material needs. This is the basis for the whole solar system nonsense. This is why a lot of nerds end up as atheists.
Damn, Brandon, it says in order to give the goyim no time to think and taking out their minds must be diverted towards industry and trade. Thus, all nations will be swallowed in the game in the race for it. This is so crazy.
Oh yeah, this is one of the greatest. They can't even talk about this document anywhere, bro. Not even Instagram. Because basically, bro, this is how it's always been. The masses led by lies. The art of directing masses and individuals by means of cleverly manipulated theory and verbiage, by regulations of life in common and all sorts of quirks, in all which the goyim understand nothing. This is what they do. So a world full of deception and lies. And then they talk about money, the greatest power that they have. They engineered a political system where the people speak so much they will exhaust the patience of their listeners and produce an abhorrence to speaking. That's what's happened in the political system. To make the goyim lose their heads in the labyrinth and come to see that the best thing is to have no opinion of any kind and it matters political. This is what they engineered. And then, this is their greatest power right here. We shall soon begin to establish huge monopolies, reservoirs of colossal riches, upon which even large fortunes of the goyim will depend, to such an extent that they will go to the bottom together with the credit of the states on the day after the political smash. They engineered the real system of the world is it runs on money. Money is also the tool of the Jesuits, and it has enabled them to do exactly this. We live in times of modernized Egyptian slavery, the kind Moses and the Israelites lived in during Egypt, before the time of Exodus. They've enslaved the Gentiles. And you see this, it basically talks about how they actually need people to hate Jews. So it says their anti-Semitism is indispensable to us for the management of our lesser brethren. And this is what I was saying, not all the Jews are in on this. It's actually a ruling class, the Jesuit order, and the people associated with the 13 families, and then everyone else. And it basically talks about how their anti-Semitism allows them to contain their lesser brethren.
So what's this Jewish super state?
This be talking about the weapons in our hands are limitless ambitions, burning greediness, merciless vengeance, hatred, and malice. This is how they really operate.
This is actually insane.
And bro, right here, division of parties has given them into our hands. For in order to carry on a contested struggle, one must have money. And the money is in our hand. That's the real facts right there. Remember I was telling you about the hidden hand through history. It's these Jesuits right here. The Goy kings on their thrones and the blind force of the Goy mob. Who is going to verify what is taught in the village schools? No one can verify. But look right here, in order to annihilate The institutions of the Goyim, before its time, we have touched them with craft and delicacy, and have taken hold of the ends of the springs which move the mechanism. These springs lay in a strict but just sense of order. We have replaced them by the chaotic license of liberalism. We have got our hands in the administration of the law, conduct of elections, into the press, into liberty of person, but principally into education and training as being the cornerstones of a free existence. They've been massive on education, but they sell the idea, and then you go to indoctrination camp.
Christian youth destroyed. We have few fooled, bemused, and corrupted the youth of Goyim by rearing to be false, although it is that they have been.
Says we rear the Goyim in principles and theories which they know to be false. This is the origin of the theory of courts of arbitration. And this is what they did. They lied to the Christians. They didn't really mention it right here, but the lie is right here. They lied about a solar system. It's really this kind of system that we live in. And that's why they specifically targeted the Christian youth. And what is their goal? World power. They use finances to do it. This is why they were kicked out of 109 countries. They know it's a poison of liberalism. And they dictate who the president is. We name president.
The future resource. Wow.
We shall destroy. That's what all the wars are about. Genuinely says right here, the Goyim are a flock of sheep, and we are their wool. Poneman 4K right here. They control the press. This is how they can engineer the lies.
Free press destroyed.
Only lies printed. We deceive workers. And then, how do they do it? We distract them with amusements, games, pastimes, passions, people's palaces. Soon we will begin through the press to propose competitions in art and sport of all kinds.
Fashions in which we should find ourselves compelled to oppose them.
They
seem to be shocking, so it's filthy and dominant.
They have actually engineered the books to be nasty. They've engineered sex scenes in every TV show and every movie for a reason. It says right here, our wise men trained to become leaders of the Goyim will compose speeches, projects, memoirs, articles, which will be used by us to influence the minds of the Goyim, directing them towards such understanding and forms of knowledge. Secret societies, basically they run Freemasonry. They run the lodges. And this is why they are able to do what they do.
They enter in the hopes, curiosity, to get a nibble at the public pie, and some of them in order to obtain a hearing before the public, especially emotional success and applause of the soul amongst any plan to have success.
For real, the Gentiles are cattle. We demand submission. We shall be cruel. We shall change history.
We shall replace with the study of the program of the future. We shall erase from the memory of men all facts of previous centuries which are undesirable to us. We only leave those which depict all the errors of government of the Goya. The study of practical life, of the obligations of order, of the relations of people, one of the avoiding bad and selfish examples, respect, infection, one of the similar questions of states of life must be trained and circle. The chaos genius is always managed and always will know to slip through into other states of life. The occasional genius has always managed and always will manage to slip through into other states of life, but it is the most perfect sake of this rare occasional genius to let through into ranks foreign to them. The untalented who thus rob of their places those who belong himself, and what all these has ended for the Goyim, who allow this crying absurdity.
Oh, they control education. And it's basically talking about how the smart ones would just drop out, slip into other fields. And then it talks about how, because that happens, the untalented feel what should have been theirs if the smart ones remained in school. And it calls that a crying absurdity. This is where it talks about the indoctrination camps. Learners of all ages have the right to assemble together with their parents in the educational establishments, as if we're in a club. During these assemblies, teachers will read what will pass as free lectures on questions of human relations, laws, examples, new theories not yet declared, and these will be raised by us to the stage of dogma of faith as traditional stage towards faith. And it basically talks about programming children in education. And it talks about how the purpose of these object lessons, the purpose of which is to turn the Goyim into unthinking, submissive brutes, waiting for things to be presented before their eyes in order to form an idea of them. In France, one of our best agents, Bourgeois, had already made public a new program of teaching by object lessons. This is what it comes down to right here. Education and money.
Because at the end, this is actually the same. We shall destroy the Quid.
Basically, they run the Roman Catholic Church. They also run Islam, and they run Judaism. And they set the Catholic Church against Islam. And that's what this World War III is all about. Zionism, where we have a lot of Christians that wrongfully support the state of Israel because of their clever naming, because that's what they do. And it basically says right here, what I was talking about the Pope, the King of the Jews will be the real Pope of the universe, the patriarch of the international church. It's really the Pope that actually runs things. That's why when we go to Italy, it's the Pope who we're going to slap hard in. And basically, this is actually their God right here.
MK Ultras, CIA, in general, our contemporary president continues to convict state affairs, religions, and especially massacre.
See, basically, Vishnu is another name for Apollo, who's another name for basically Osiris.
So they really wrote a whole plan on how to take over the world and trick everybody and delete history, and they did it.
Exactly. They really control the money and they run the education. And that's how they've compelled the masses under systems of deception. And how does government run? Government by fear.
Exactly. And in the Bible, it really said this isn't happening.
Exactly. It was always predicted. It's crazy. The financial program. See, this is why money is so important. Because it is an economic system of slavery that really controls people. It's about controlling people through taxes.
Because literally just the middle playground. Yeah.
Oh yeah, America is basically the Egypt, the new Egypt. They say money is a control mechanism they have. We cause depression. It says the gold standard has been the ruin of the states who adopted it, for it has not been able to satisfy the demands for money. The more so that we have removed gold from circulation as far as possible. See, what a lot of people don't understand when I was talking about magic, you see, there was always the alchemical idea that you could turn that into gold, that you could create gold. And this text basically talks about how they have all the gold and they remove it from circulation.
Yeah, because basically gold is, I'm pretty sure, the only thing that's actually going to be worth when all, because money doesn't mean shit. But they have all.
Yeah, just like the myth of the dragon holding all the gold, and they need to bankrupt everybody, keep them in a permanent state of toil. The tyranny of usury. That's why it was outlawed in the Bible. These loans, everyone's in debt. This is straight facts right here. It's the Goy rulers, whom we once upon a time. It's basically an empire of lies, empire of words.
Can't believe they really made this whole plan to just take over the world, bro. That's insane.
And if libraries were truly free knowledge, this would be in every library, but it was eradicated.
It's actually insane, bro.
In our hands is the greatest power of our day, gold.
Nate, you don't mean shit.
And then it says right here, no need to seek further proof that our rule is predestined. It's just all prophecy of events that came to pass.
No, literally, all of it. Isn't that crazy? All of it.
A lot of, even what was happening today was predicted by Albert Pike. World War III.
Literally everyone, because there's orchestrating it.
This is what happened, bro. That's wild.
Was it that? Shit.
That's really the straight facts right there.
Shit. Genuinely is insane.
That's really the facts right here. Written by these people and their leader, the Pope. Basically, when we see the Jesuits is on site.
This actually just like opened my eyes even more, like to the world.
Oh yeah, he's real fast right there. Because bro, this is what I was doing, bro. When I was working, bro. Anytime I had free time, I was getting that truth, bro. Because when you really do the deep research, I had to go deep in the internet to even find these books, bro.
Where did you find them?
Just on the deep web, bro. Deep side of that shit, bro. Because this, bro, like this one talks about Queen Elizabeth, bro. She literally employed this guy named John Dee to talk with demons, and all the kings and queens throughout history had sorcerers and witches working for them.
Monsters of Babylon.
But yeah,
What's that talking
number
about?
one, they do go crazy.
What's like the like what do they talk about?
Basically, a bunch of just it goes over the real history of the truth. It's okay, some wild shit. But Loki,
Is this book interesting?
it's called The Gods of the Lodge. It's talking about basically the real truth to the Freemasons. They pull from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They have the Osiris ritual in their Freemason rituals as a senior scribe of the royal art.
If you send me one of these things, like, are you gonna get like blacklisted? Just not send me that the Jesuit thing, and then the Monsters of Babylon.
Say that. But Loki, bro, we gotta log in, bro. Can't be reading out here.
I wasn't gonna read it today. I was just like,
Gotta just be focused on some lead gen, bro. Make 30 mandaroonies a month real quick. And then, bro, we basically just gotta pull up to the Vatican and actually slap the Pope. Telling you. And, bro, not gonna lie, bro, the secret to diet and health, Aiden is founder planets, bro. Keep right here. Judaism, strange God. Bro, yeah. Loki, it's basically an Ignite deep dive into the secrets of the world. Bro, can you hear this on the mic?
oh, yeah,
Yo.
you hear me?
Yeah, it's basically an Ignite deep dive into the secrets of the world.
That Ignite Deep.
Wait, Loki? So